A dying girl washed up in Apache territory, but one warrior refused to let her go. The river moved slow that morning, thick with silt from the rains. Tahoma crouched near the bend, a basket of roots beside him, when he saw something pale caught in the reeds. At first he thought it was driftwood. Then he saw her hand, small, bloodied, limp against the mud. He dropped the basket. She was tangled in brush and wet fabric, her face ghost pale, lips blue. Her dress, torn lace and silk, clung to her body like the river was trying to keep her. Her chest rose, barely. He pressed 2 fingers to her neck. Faint. But there. No tracks nearby, no horse, no wagon, no sound but water and wind. Tahoma moved carefully. One arm under her knees, one around her back. She weighed less than a sack of corn. Her head lolled against his chest, strands of wet hair clinging to his skin. Her breath came in shallow bursts, like she was trying to stay tethered to the world. He didn't speak, just turned and climbed. Up the rocky slope, into the trees, across the deer trail only he knew. She didn't stir. Not once. He heard nothing behind them. Still, he moved fast. By the time they reached the shelter, a lean-to tucked into the canyon wall, his arms burned. He laid her down on a blanket of hides, threw another over her, and lit the fire with shaking fingers. The smoke curled. The heat rose. Still, she didn't move. Tahoma sat back on his heels, studying her face. Not child, not old. Somewhere in between. Too much blood on her sleeve. A gash above her temple. She looked like someone the river had tried to drown. And he didn't know why, but he wasn't going to let it finish the job. The fire wouldn't catch. Tahoma struck flint again. Sparks jumped, flickered, died. The wood was dry, the kindling good. Still, the flame resisted, like it knew something he didn't. She lay curled on the hides, wrapped tight in wool and silence. Her lips were cracked, her skin paper-thin and gray around the edges. Breath came so soft he had to lean close to be sure it was still there. Each time it was, he exhaled like it was his own. He boiled water, crushed herbs, pressed damp cloth to her head. Once he lifted her against him, trying to share the heat of his own body. Her face barely stirred. The third night, he fed her broth with a carved spoon. Drop by drop, most of it dribbled down her chin. Still, he kept at it. Gentle, patient, like coaxing life back into stone. She never opened her eyes. He didn't ask the sky for help. He didn't pray. But in the quiet, he whispered things, words from childhood, from his mother, long buried. Words no one had heard from his mouth in years. Outside, coyotes called. Inside, the fire finally caught. It popped low and steady, casting soft light across her face. He watched her all night. In the morning, her fingers twitched. Barely. Like something inside her remembered the world. He got up, crushed more roots, and stirred them into warm water. Set it beside her. Still no voice, no eyes, no movement, but that one breath, then another. It was enough. Tahoma sat in the doorway, bow across his lap, eyes fixed on the tree line. Whatever storm had carried her this far wasn't done, but he was here now, and she was still breathing. She woke like a deer, startled from death, gasping, eyes wide, chest heaving against the blanket. Her hands clawed at the hides beneath her, legs kicking weakly, mouth opening but no words coming out. Just breathe. Fast, panicked. Tahoma moved slow, palms open. No sudden sound. "You're safe," he said low, steady. "No one here but you, and me." She blinked hard, her gaze wild, darting around the small shelter, the fire, the stone walls, the bowl of roots near the door. Her lips parted again. Still no words. He knelt beside her but didn't touch her. Just waited. She tried to speak. Nothing came but a dry crack of sound, broken like glass. Her fingers clutched the blanket. Then she shook her head, once, twice, as if trying to push something loose, something that wouldn't come free. "Your name?" he asked softly. She stared at him, confused, lost. More silence. Her mouth trembled. She didn't know. She searched her face with her own hands like there'd be an answer written there. Tahoma watched her fight her own mind, her own memory, until finally she slumped back, chest still rising quick, eyes full of something too big to name. "It's all right," he said. "Don't need a name today. You rest." She closed her eyes, not because she trusted him, not yet, but because she had nothing left to give. Her body shook beneath the blanket. Fever still held her tight. He dipped the cloth again, pressed it to her forehead. The fire crackled low. The canyon wind howled outside like it wanted her back. But inside, Tahoma whispered to the storm, "Not today." And the girl without a name slept on. The first time she sat up on her own, her arms shook under her. Tahoma stayed near, not helping unless she asked. She didn't. She only gritted her teeth and pushed until she was upright, sweat beading on her brow. Her hair hung in thick, tangled ropes, mud-caked, streaked with dried blood and river silt. The smell of the water still clung to it, rot and something older, like the grave. She touched it once, then dropped her hand like it burned. Later, while she slept again, he filled a basin with warm water and crushed sweetroot into it. When she woke, he sat beside her, holding out a comb carved from antler. He said nothing, just waited. She nodded, barely. He moved carefully, poured water gently over her head from a gourd, let it run down in rivulets, carrying filth to the dirt floor. He didn't touch her skin, not once. Only the strands of hair, slow, patient strokes until the knots began to give. Blood loosened. Dirt slipped free. What was left was pale gold, dulled by shadow. It took an hour. When he finished, he helped her to the riverbank. She knelt there, knees in the moss, and looked into the water. The reflection stared back, bruised, hollow-eyed, half a ghost. She reached out to touch the image. It rippled. Then her shoulders began to shake, but no sound came. No sobs, just tears that fell hard and fast down her clean cheeks, dropping into the same river that had tried to keep her. Tahoma said nothing. He stood a short distance behind, watching. When she was done, she wiped her face with the edge of her sleeve, turned back to him. Her eyes still rimmed red, but something steadier lived behind them now. He nodded once. So did she. That night, the fire burned low, soft and steady, casting long shadows on the canyon wall. She sat near it, knees pulled close, wrapped in a blanket that smelled of smoke and sage. Her fingers twitched against her thighs, restless like something inside her wanted out. Tahoma was across from her, quiet as always, slicing dried roots into a clay bowl. He hadn't asked again, not her name, not her past. He didn't press. He just stayed. She looked down at the packed earth between them. Her hand moved slowly, hesitating. Then she leaned forward and dragged her fingertip through the dust. A single letter, then another. The dirt crumbled under her nail as she finished the curve of the E. The last line was shaky. Her whole hand trembled when she pulled it back. ELSIE. She stared at it like it might vanish. Her breath hitched. Tahoma looked up from his bowl and followed her gaze. "Elsie," he said quietly. She nodded, barely. "You sure?" She shook her head. Not exactly. But it had come from somewhere deep. Maybe memory, maybe hope. She couldn't tell the difference anymore. Tahoma studied the letters, then looked at her, steady. "Then Elsie," he said, "you live." A breath left her lips. Not quite a sigh, not quite relief. Just air, steady for the first time. She traced the letters again, like anchoring herself to something. Not to who she was, but to who she might be now. He added a log to the fire. The flame rose, warming the space between them. Outside, the canyon held its silence. Inside, a name rested in the dirt. It was enough for tonight. The crows came first. Black wings cutting through the morning hush, circling low above the canyon ridge. Tahoma stopped chopping wood mid-swing, his eyes tracking their flight. Wind shifted. So did his stance. He turned to her. "Come," he said, low and urgent. Elsie didn't ask why. She followed, heart already quickening. He led her down a narrow game trail, then crouched by the edge of a dry creek bed. The roots of an old pine jutted from the bank like crooked fingers. Without a word, he pulled aside branches and motioned for her to crawl in. She hesitated, then dropped to her knees and wriggled into the hollow space. Earth pressed close on all sides. The smell of dry bark and old water clung to her skin. "Stay quiet," Tahoma whispered, and disappeared. Minutes passed. Then hoofbeats. Voices. Rough, sharp English. Too loud for the land around them. 3 men rode slowly along the trail above. Their boots were clean, rifles slung low. One spat tobacco into the brush. Another laughed at something crude. Elsie held her breath. Then she saw it. One rider leaned forward in his saddle, and the collar of his coat shifted. A silver pendant hung against his chest, glinting in the sun. She knew it. Didn't know how. Couldn't say why. But her stomach turned. Her breath stilled. Something in that shape, curved like a teardrop, edged in black stone, clawed at the back of her memory. She clutched the roots tighter. The men passed, slow and careless. Their words faded with the sound of hooves and distance. When it was safe, Tahoma appeared again, pulling back the brush. She crawled out, knees shaking. He saw her face, pale again, eyes wide. "You saw something," he said. She only nodded. Once, and didn't look back. She didn't cry out when it happened. Just staggered near the edge of the clearing, one hand pressed to her side, her breath coming hard and fast. Tahoma reached her before she hit the ground. Blood was seeping through the linen at her waist, darker than it should have been. She blinked at him, dazed, confused like the pain hadn't caught up yet. He carried her inside, stripped the cloth away, found the gash beneath. Old, torn open again, maybe from the crawl through the roots, maybe from how tightly she held her fear. She bit her lip, hard enough to draw more blood, as he cleaned it. Didn't scream, didn't ask for help. Just watched the ceiling like she wasn't really there. Tahoma crushed herbs into a thick green paste, added water heated from the fire. Pressed the mixture into the wound with careful fingers. She flinched once, then went still. He wrapped her in fresh linen, tucked the blanket around her, and sat close. Closer than before, he began to chant, low, rhythmic words from a tongue older than either of them. A song meant for pain. A song meant to keep death confused and waiting. She didn't sleep. Not really. Just drifted. That night, Tahoma's fire burned low and his dreams burned hot. He saw the river again, rising, wild, and the crows overhead circling something pale. He saw fire licking through trees. Men shouting, a scream, her scream. His name on her lips, though she had never spoken it before. He woke in a cold sweat, hand clutching the knife at his side. The fire cracked. She was still there, still breathing. The woman the river hadn't drowned. The wound hadn't claimed. The woman who refused to die. The days grew quieter, but not empty. Elsie still couldn't speak. Her voice caught in her throat when she tried, like her body remembered how to be silent longer than it remembered how to form words. But her eyes, those spoke plenty. Questions. Warnings. Thanks. Tahoma noticed. He sat with her in the mornings, tracing shapes into the dirt. A sun, a tree, a deer. Then gestures, flat hand to mouth for eat, 2 fingers walking for travel. Simple things, shaped from old signs passed down long before English ever reached these hills. She watched, practiced, nodded. In return, she showed him her own world. Pointed to her boot, said, "Shoe," tapped her chest, mouthed, "Heart," pressed her fingers together and mouthed, "Safe," when he brought her water. Tahoma listened, not just with ears, but with something deeper. His hands learned her words. His mind held them. At night, they sat by the fire, passing roots and carved spoons, talking without voices. Her mouth never opened, but she still answered. Raised eyebrows. tilted head. A small smile when he got a word right. He hadn't heard English spoken soft before, only shouted across fields, barked by soldiers. But in her mouth, even voiceless, it felt like something else. Not threat, not command, just human. She pointed to her chest one evening and signed, "Name?" He pressed a hand to his own chest. "Tahoma," he said. Her lips shaped it. Not perfect, but close enough. She nodded. "Tahoma." And when he smiled, not wide but real, her fingers stilled over the blanket and she mouthed a single word. "Friend." He didn't answer, just tapped his chest once, then pointed to her. And she understood. He laid it on the blanket between them without a word. A small blade, notched from years of use, its handle wrapped in worn hide. Not shiny, not new, but solid. Real. Elsie looked at it, then at him. "Not for killing," Tahoma said. "Not unless you must." His voice was low, firm, but gentle. "You keep it close, even if it's never used." She reached for it slowly, fingers brushing the leather. It fit her palm like it belonged there. Not to hurt, not to strike, but to remind. She nodded once. That night, she didn't sleep right away. Just lay curled near the fire, blanket pulled tight around her, the blade clutched in her hand. Her thumb traced the worn edge of the handle again and again, like a prayer without words. Outside, the wind moved through the canyon like breath through lungs. Inside, the fire hissed and cracked, soft and steady. Tahoma sat on the far side of the shelter, sharpening another knife. But his eyes flicked to her every so often. He didn't speak, didn't move closer. She didn't need him to. That blade beside her wasn't just for safety. It was a promise. That she had something to protect now, that her hands weren't helpless anymore. When she finally slept, it was deeper than before. No twitching, no gasps. Just her breath and the soft rustle of the blanket as her fingers stayed wrapped around the handle. Tahoma watched the rise and fall of her shoulder, the way her body had stopped bracing for attack. She was still healing, still quiet. But tonight, she slept with steel in her palm. And she didn't wake screaming. The prints were fresh. Tahoma crouched beside them, fingers brushing the edges. Heavy boots, pointed toe, heel worn, uneven. Not Apache, not a hunter. 3 sets, 1 smaller, 2 wide. Guns, likely. He looked up the trail, then down, toward the river. Elsie stood behind him, arms crossed over her chest, knife strapped beneath her belt now. Her breath caught the moment she saw the tracks. Something in her face shifted, like stone cracking under frost. She knelt slowly, fingertips hovering above the marks, close but not touching. Her eyes locked on the ground. Then unfocused. A sound escaped her lips. Not a word. A whimper pulled from somewhere buried. She blinked, hard. And again. Her mouth opened like she meant to say something. But nothing came. Tahoma rose, didn't speak. She stayed crouched a moment longer, staring at the dust like it held her whole story. Then she stood. Her jaw was set now. Her hands clenched and unclenched at her sides. Not in fear, but in something else. Memory, fire, screams, rough hands. A silver pendant catching moonlight. Running barefoot through trees. Her side splitting open. Her name whispered. No, not whispered. Slurred. She staggered back a step. Tahoma moved closer but didn't touch her. Didn't speak. He'd seen that look before. He only waited. The wind picked up, carrying dust and dry leaves across the tracks, softening their edges. Elsie looked up at him finally, her eyes clearer than they'd been in days. "I remember some," she said, voice cracked and low. He nodded. "That's enough," he said. They left the tracks behind, but not the truth buried underneath them. They sat by the fire, a silence stretched long between them. The kind that holds weight, the kind that waits for truth. Elsie's hands were still stained from stripping bark that morning. Bits of resin clung beneath her fingernails. She stared into the flames, shoulders stiff. Then she spoke. I was taken, she said. The words came slow, like she was peeling them from bone. On the way west, the men, one said my father owed something, said I'd pay it. Tahoma didn't move. They kept me in a barn, somewhere east of the mountains. I tried to run the first night. They laughed, said I was soft. Her throat tightened. The second time, I made it to the river. Her voice cracked. She looked away. I didn't know the water would be so fast. I didn't care. The fire snapped. She kept her eyes on the floor. I wasn't supposed to live, she said, barely above a whisper. Tahoma's breath moved slow, steady. He leaned forward, placed another log on the fire. Let the embers rise before he answered. You did, he said. That means something. She shook her head. I was just trying to disappear. And the river let you go. She looked at him. Really looked. Like she hadn't been sure before whether he'd judge her, pity her, pull away. But he didn't flinch. Didn't blink. You did not die, he said again, firmer now. That means you live. Her breath hitched, then steadied. It still felt like her lungs belonged to someone else, but for the first time she was trying to take them back. She reached across the space between them and touched the earth. I want to keep meaning something, she said. Tahoma nodded once. You will. The wind slipped through the cracks in the shelter that night, colder than it had been all season. The fire burned low, stubborn against the chill. Elsie curled beneath her blanket, shoulders tense, eyes open but unfocused, watching shadows dance across the walls like they might reach for her. Tahoma sat near the hearth, carving a notch into a bit of pine. His blade moved slow, careful, but his gaze drifted toward her more than the wood. Without a word, he set the carving aside. He began to hum. Low at first, a rhythm older than English, older than pain. Just sound, soft and sure, the kind that wrapped around the silence instead of breaking it, the kind you didn't need to understand to feel. Elsie's eyes fluttered closed. The melody wove through the room, brushing her like warmth. She didn't ask what the words meant. There weren't any, not spoken ones. Just breath and memory. Tahoma's voice carried pieces of childhood, of loss, of something once sacred and still whole. Her hand reached out beneath the blanket, slow and unsure. Found his knee. He didn't speak, just kept humming. She let the song hold her, let her breath match its rise and fall. Her hand stayed there, light but real. Fingers curled soft into the worn fabric of his trousers. And for the first time since the river, since the barn, since whatever life she'd been torn from, her body stopped bracing for the next blow. She slept. Not in pieces. Not in panic. Tahoma leaned back against the wall, still humming as the fire dimmed. And that night, neither of them woke from fear. Just quiet, just breathe. And a song the wind carried away. The storm didn't come with thunder. It came with dust, rising slow on the trail, the kind kicked up by hooves and boots that didn't belong here. Tahoma saw them before they saw him. 3 riders, same as before. But this time, they moved with purpose. No laughing, no wandering. They were hunting now. He stepped back into the trees, breath steady, heart not. Elsie was in the shelter, grinding root into poultice. When he entered, she knew. Didn't ask, just looked at him, her hands going still. They're back, he said. She swallowed. For me? He didn't answer. He went to the packs, took the bow, the quiver, a blade, left the food, the water, the warmth, all for her. I'll lead them north, he said. You stay low. Don't leave the canyon until nightfall. Elsie rose, fists clenched. What if they see you? He looked at her then, not with fear but resolve. Then they follow, not find you. She shook her head. No, He stepped closer, held her gaze. This is not running, it's choosing. I go because I must. You stay because you can. Her throat tightened. He touched her arm, brief, steady. I return when it's safe. Then he was gone, through brush, downslope, across stone. His shadow flickered through trees, fast as a deer but silent. The riders took the bait. He made sure they saw a glimpse of movement, a glint of leather, a figure slipping through the dark. They gave chase. Back at the shelter, Elsie knelt in the dirt, heart pounding, one hand on her knife. Every breath was a prayer, not to be spared, but for him to come back, whole, breathing. Heron. The shot cracked through the canyon just past dusk. Then another. Elsie dropped the bowl in her hands. It shattered on the stone floor, but she didn't look down. Her eyes were fixed on the tree line, on the shadowed ridge where Tahoma had gone hours before. Silence followed, the kind that weighs more than noise. He didn't come back. Not when the sun sank low, not when the stars blinked through the dark. She waited by the door, knife on her lap, heart in her throat. Every whisper of wind through the branches made her flinch. Every snap of twig felt like it could be him. Or not him. She couldn't sit still anymore. By full dark, she had wrapped a blanket around her shoulders, packed a pouch with dried roots and flint, and climbed. Up the ridge, boots slipping on loose stone, breath ragged with fear. At the top, the sky stretched wide and cold. Nothing but stars. No movement, no sound, just black trees and empty space. Her hands trembled as she struck the flint. Again and again. The flame caught. She fed it pine needles, twigs, bark. Made it grow tall, bright. A beacon, a plea. Smoke curled into the night. She stood beside it, arms crossed tight, eyes scanning the horizon. She didn't cry. Not yet. She just stared into the dark, mouth moving without sound. "Come back," she whispered. Over and over. To no one, to everything. Come back. To the man who carried her out of a river. To the one who hadn't let her drown even when she wanted to. To the one who lit a fire in her chest when she'd thought there was nothing left to burn. She waited, and the fire burned high. She heard him before she saw him. A soft crunch of gravel. A breath caught in pain. Then silence again. She ran to the edge of the clearing, firelight flickering against the trees. Tahoma was there, barely upright, one hand pressed to his ribs, the other dragging a branch for balance. Blood soaked his side. His steps were wrong, staggered. But his eyes found hers, steady even through the haze. She ran to him, arms out. He didn't fall until she reached him. He collapsed into her chest, and she lowered him gently to the ground. His weight was heavy, real, alive. She didn't cry. Her hands moved fast, tearing strips of cloth, pressing against the wound. Blood leaked between her fingers, hot and dark. He winced but didn't speak. "You brought me back," she whispered, voice rough, close to his ear. "Now it's my turn." He blinked slow, like the world was slipping sideways. She held his jaw, forced his eyes open. "Stay with me." She packed the wound with crushed root and wrapped it tight. Her hands didn't shake, not once. When he groaned, she whispered the song he once hummed to her, the rhythm rough but still there. The fire crackled behind them. The ridge still smoked. She leaned his head into her lap, brushing hair from his brow, watching the rise and fall of his chest. Slow, shallow, but still moving. "You did it," she said softly. "You made it home." His lips parted. No sound, just a breath. She smiled through the blood on her hands. "I'm not letting you go," she said. And he didn't fight her. The snow melted slow that year, like the earth itself was waking gently after too long a sleep. Streams ran clear again. Shoots of green pushed through the frost-hardened soil. And in the clearing, beneath a tall cedar, Tahoma stood watching the sky shift from winter to spring. Behind him, the door creaked open. Elsie stepped out barefoot, her hem brushing the grass, her hair unbound. The wound that nearly took him had long since closed. The silence that had once held her tight had loosened, thread by thread, until breath became words again. She crossed the clearing without hurry. He turned when her shadow touched his boots. She stopped just in front of him, hands loose at her sides, eyes steady. She hadn't spoken in days, not because she couldn't, but because she had learned the weight of quiet, what it carried, what it meant. This time, though, her lips parted. "I choose this life," she said, each word clear, sure. "I choose you." Tahoma didn't speak. Her voice trembled then, just once, but she held it steady. "Tahoma," she said. His name. No flinch, no pain behind it. He exhaled like he hadn't breathed until now. She reached for him. He caught her hands in his. Callous palms to healing fingers. No trembling, no fear. Only spring in the air and truth between them. She leaned into his chest, forehead against his collarbone, eyes closed. And he pressed his hand to the back of her neck, soft and solid. They stood like that beneath the cedar, two people who had come through fire, river, storm, and still chose to stay. His name was the first word she gave the world without breaking, and his arms were the first place she didn't need to run from,